Today, we will learn about one of the greatest leaders in history, Abraham Lincoln. Welcome back to Mindset English, the channel where we share inspiring life stories to help you improve your English and grow stronger with every word. As you listen, you'll not only practice your English, but also discover how one man's resilience and determination changed the world. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the extraordinary life of Abraham Lincoln, a man who began with nothing but became a symbol of hope, courage, and leadership for generations. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a tiny log cabin in Hodgenville, Kentucky. His early life was filled with hardship. His parents, Thomas and Nancy Lincoln, were poor farmers who worked hard just to survive. The small one-room cabin they lived in offered little comfort and no luxury. Abraham, often called Abe, grew up knowing the value of work and sacrifice. From a very young age, when Abraham was just 9 years old, a tragedy struck that changed his life forever. His beloved mother, Nancy, died from milk sickness, a disease caused by drinking the milk of cows that had eaten poisonous plants. This heartbreaking loss left a deep scar on young Abe's heart. But even in this sorrow, Abraham began to develop the inner strength that would one day define his character. Not long after Nancy's death, Abraham's father remarried. His new stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, came into his life when he was around 10 years old. Sarah was warm, loving, and full of kindness. She treated Abraham as her own son and quickly became a guiding light in his life. She supported his growing passion for reading and brought books into the home, a rare treasure in those days. Although life remained difficult, Abraham found comfort in reading. He would walk miles just to borrow a book, and late at night, after finishing his chores, he would read by candlelight. He read everything he could find, biographies, history books, and anything that expanded his understanding of the world. Despite the physical labor and financial struggle, his hunger for knowledge never faded. As a teenager, Abraham was tall, strong, and known for his honesty. He helped on the family farm, worked as a rail splitter, and did other tough jobs. People around him started to respect his work ethic and fairness. Even though he didn't have access to formal education, he taught himself through persistence and deep curiosity. His mind was sharp, and he dreamed of something more than life on the frontier. At age 22, Abraham moved to New Salem, Illinois. There he began to build a new life. He worked in a local general store, where he earned the respect of the townspeople with his honesty and intelligence. He became known as someone people could trust. During this time, he met a young woman named Anne Rutledge. She was kind, gentle, and intelligent, and many believed that Abraham had found true love. But once again, tragedy struck. In 1835, Anne fell seriously ill and passed away. Abraham was devastated. The pain of losing Anne added to the grief he had carried since childhood. Life had dealt him many blows, yet he never let them break his spirit. Instead, Each sorrow made him more determined to do something meaningful with his life. He turned his pain into purpose. That purpose, he realized, was to serve people, to make life better for others, and to stand for justice. Abraham became interested in politics and public service. In 1832, at the age of 23, he ran for the Illinois state legislature. He had little money, no political connections, and almost no formal education. All he had was his reputation for honesty and his passion for helping others. Despite his hard work, he lost the election, but failure didn't defeat him. It became his teacher. After the loss, Abraham turned to law. He couldn't afford law school, so he taught himself, studying law books borrowed from friends and mentors. He read for hours, asked questions, practiced arguments in front of a mirror, and slowly he gained knowledge. In 1836, at the age of 27, Abraham Lincoln passed the bar exam and became a lawyer. He moved to Springfield, Illinois, where he began his legal career. He quickly became known for his integrity, earning the nickname Honest Abe. He didn't take shortcuts or cheat to win cases. He believed that justice mattered more than winning. People trusted him not just as a lawyer, but as a man of deep moral values. But even as he found success in law, Abraham couldn't ignore the pull of politics. In 1834, he was elected to the Illinois state legislature as a member of the Whig Party. His political journey had finally begun. He wasn't the loudest or the most experienced, but his dedication to justice and equality made him stand out. He used his position not for power, but to speak for those who had no voice. Abraham had a special concern for the growing problem of slavery. While many politicians avoided the topic, Lincoln couldn't stay silent. He believed deeply in human freedom. The idea that one person could own another went against everything he stood for. Though slavery was common in parts of the country, Lincoln believed that it was morally wrong and dangerous for the future of the United States. In 1846, Lincoln was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. There, he continued to speak out against slavery and the Mexican-American War, which he felt was unfairly started. His strong opinions didn't always win him support, but he remained true to what he believed was right. After one term, he returned to Springfield and focused once more on his legal career. But the issue of slavery didn't go away. As time passed, it became more divisive. The country was growing, and the question of whether new states would allow slavery created tension between the North and South. Lincoln watched the nation inch closer to a dangerous conflict. He knew that leadership grounded in moral courage would soon be needed. In 1858, Lincoln returned to the political spotlight when he ran for the U.S. Senate against Stephen A. Douglas. The two men held a series of debates that captivated the nation. Lincoln spoke with passion and clarity about the dangers of slavery. His words, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," became a defining message. He warned that the country could not remain half free and half enslaved. It had to choose. Although he lost the Senate race, Lincoln's reputation soared. People across the country admired his honesty, intelligence, and courage. He wasn't just a local politician anymore. He was becoming a national leader. In 1860, the Republican Party invited him to run for president. Lincoln accepted, knowing that the country stood at a turning point in history. The 1860 presidential election was one of the most important in American history. Lincoln won, becoming the 16th President of the United States. But his election caused panic in the South. Many Southern states feared that Lincoln would end slavery, and one by one they chose to leave the Union. They formed a new government called the Confederate States of America. In April 1861, the Civil War began. It was a war not only to preserve the United States, but to determine whether the nation would allow slavery to continue. Lincoln never wanted war. He wanted peace and unity. But he also knew that some things were too important to compromise. Freedom was one of them. As president during the Civil War, Lincoln faced unimaginable pressure. Thousands of soldiers were dying. Cities were being destroyed. Families were torn apart. People blamed him for both, doing too much and not doing enough. Yet through all the chaos, Lincoln stayed focused on his mission, to save the Union and to end slavery. He worked long hours in the White House, reading letters from soldiers, listening to generals, and making tough decisions. He often walked alone at night, thinking deeply about the weight he carried. He felt the pain of the nation in his own heart. In July 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg marked a turning point in the war. The Union Army won, but the cost was terrible. Thousands of lives lost. Later that year, Lincoln visited the battlefield to honor the fallen. There, he delivered the Gettysburg Address. In just a few words, he reminded the nation of its founding principles, that all people are created equal, and that democracy must not perish. Even in the darkest days of war, Lincoln's faith in humanity never wavered. In January 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all enslaved people in the Confederate States were free. It was a bold and historic act. Though it didn't end slavery entirely, it changed the meaning of the war. This fight was now not only for Union but for human freedom. Lincoln knew that freedom must be permanent. He pushed for the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which would abolish slavery once and for all. He worked tirelessly to gather support for it, calling on lawmakers to do what was right, not just what was easy. He believed that this moment was their chance to rise above politics and stand on the side of justice. Through it all, Lincoln's personal life was filled with pain. In 1862, his beloved son Willie died of illness. The loss broke Lincoln's heart. He grieved deeply, often visiting the boy's grave. Yet even in mourning, he found the strength to carry on. Those close to him said that grief made him gentler, more thoughtful, and even more committed to creating a better world. He continued leading with quiet strength, trusting in the goodness of people and the power of unity. He believed that even after the war, the country could heal, that Americans could forgive one another and build a new future together. As the war neared its end, Lincoln's vision for a reunited nation became clearer. He spoke not with anger, but with hope, urging Americans to treat each other with kindness and respect. He said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all." And it was in those final months, as victory seemed close and the dream of a free, united America began to take shape. Under Grant's firm leadership, the Union Army finally gained critical momentum in 1864. Victory after victory shifted the tides of war. The Confederate forces, once confident and dominant, were now on the defensive. The relentless push by the Union troops was clear proof that the end of the Civil War was approaching fast. Lincoln, ever the strategist and the man of unshakable faith, placed his complete trust in General Ulysses S. Grant. He knew that Grant had both the courage and the conviction to finish what had been started. By early 1865, the Confederate Army was weakening. Supplies were low, morale was even lower. Entire towns were devastated, families torn apart, and the Southern economy was collapsing. On April 9, 1865, history was made when General Robert E. Lee, the commanding officer of the Confederate Army, officially surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. The war that had divided the nation for 4 bloody years was finally over. It was a moment of great triumph, not just for Lincoln, but for the entire nation. The Union had been preserved. Slavery, the cruel institution that had stained the soul of the country for generations, was finally being dismantled. Lincoln's dream of a nation united in liberty and equality had begun to materialize. But even in this moment of victory, Lincoln remained grounded. He knew that the battle for equality was far from over. Winning the war was just one chapter. Rebuilding the nation was the next. Just days after the surrender, the unthinkable happened. On the evening of April 14, 1865, while attending the play Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., Abraham Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and a Confederate sympathizer. The bullet struck the president in the back of the head. He was rushed to a nearby house, but the wound was fatal. Lincoln passed away the following morning, April 15, 1865, at 7:22 a.m. The news of his death spread across the country like wildfire. People cried in the streets. Businesses closed their doors in mourning. Black and white Americans alike gathered. In silence, their hearts broken by the loss of a man who had become more than a leader. He was a symbol of hope. Though Lincoln's body was gone, his spirit remained. His vision of a free, united America became a guiding light for generations to come. In death, he became larger than life. His assassination marked the end of one of the most significant chapters in American history, but it also marked the beginning of another, the struggle to realize his dream. After Lincoln's death, the heavy responsibility of rebuilding the nation fell to his successor, Andrew Johnson, and later to Ulysses S. Grant. The years that followed, known as the Reconstruction era, were filled with both promise and pain. The South had been devastated physically, economically, and emotionally. Entire communities were destroyed. Cities lay in rubble. Yet now they had to be reintegrated into the Union. Lincoln had hoped for a gentle, forgiving path forward, a way to heal the wounds of war and move on as one people. But without his steady hand and compassionate leadership, the path became rocky. Political tensions rose. Racism and resentment lingered. The question of how to rebuild a country that had been at war with itself became one of the greatest challenges America would ever face. Despite all this, Lincoln had laid down one of the most powerful foundations for freedom before his death: the 13th Amendment. Ratified in December 1865, it abolished slavery in all of the United States. This was the legal and moral victory he had worked toward for years. Though he did not live to see it take effect, his influence had made it possible. But even with slavery abolished, true equality was still far away. The road ahead would require decades of struggle, sacrifice, and activism. Yet people remembered Lincoln, not just for what he did, but for who he was. His personal journey became a beacon for others. Born in a log cabin in Kentucky, raised in poverty, self-taught and often overlooked, he had every reason to fail. But he chose not to. What made Lincoln special wasn't that he was born great. It was that he refused to quit. He faced heartbreak, failure, and immense pressure, yet he always moved forward. He once said, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk back." Those words weren't just a quote. They were a life philosophy. He believed in progress, no matter how slow. He believed that failure was never the end, but just a lesson waiting to be learned. One of the most touching aspects of Lincoln's character was his compassion. Even during the Civil War, he never spoke of revenge. His goal was always to reunite the country, not to punish the South. After the war, he envisioned a peace built on mercy, not hatred. This was reflected in his second inaugural address, where he said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all." Words that still echo in the hearts of those who believe, in healing over division. Lincoln was not a man of wealth or privilege. He was humble. He greeted soldiers by name, visited the sick, spoke kindly to strangers, and genuinely cared about the people he served. He was not just the president of the powerful. He was the voice of the voiceless. He understood the value of every life, regardless of race, background, or status. Today, we see Lincoln's legacy carved in stone at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Completed in 1922, nearly 60 years after his death, the memorial stands as a tribute not just to the man, but to the ideals he lived and died for. Inside sits a towering statue of Lincoln, calm and commanding, his gaze stretched out across the National Mall. The words of his Gettysburg Address, short, simple, yet profound, are etched on the walls. Millions of visitors come each year to pay their respects, to reflect, and to be inspired. The memorial is more than a tourist site. It's a temple of democracy, a place where people of all ages, races, and backgrounds can remember what's possible when someone dares to do what's right. Lincoln taught us that greatness doesn't come from power. It comes from purpose. Let us now reflect on what we can learn from his extraordinary life. 1. Dream big. Start small. Lincoln didn't begin as a president. He began as a poor boy reading borrowed books by candlelight. His journey was slow, often painful, but every step mattered. Greatness is not about how you start. It's about how hard you're willing to work. 2. Embrace failure. He lost multiple elections. His business failed. He suffered personal tragedies. But he used each failure as fuel. He once said, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure." Never settle. Keep growing. 3. Lead with love. During the most violent period in American history, Lincoln never gave in to hate. He sought peace. He saw every American, North or South, as family. His love for unity was stronger than any desire for revenge. 4. Fight for justice. He believed that all men are created equal. That belief cost him popularity, power, and ultimately his life. But he never backed down. He proved that real leaders don't chase comfort. They chase what's right. 5. Stay humble. Lincoln never thought he was better than others. He listened to everyone. He treated janitors and generals the same. His humility was not weakness. It was his greatest strength. His life is a reminder that every one of us, no matter our background or circumstances, can rise to greatness. If Lincoln could rise above poverty, loss, and rejection to shape the destiny of a nation, so can you. Your challenges are not your end. They are your training ground. So ask yourself, what will your legacy be? Will you stop when things get hard? Or will you push forward like Lincoln did? Will you let fear and failure hold you back, or will you rise again and again, one step at a time? Will you lead with love and compassion, or will you let bitterness win? The choice is yours. Lincoln's life shows us that the power to change the world is within each of us. Not because we're perfect, but because we try. Because we believe. Because we don't quit. So let Lincoln's story live not just in books, but in our lives. Let his strength be your strength. Let his humility guide your choices. Let his courage inspire your dreams. And if this story has touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what part of Lincoln's journey inspired you the most? Share this video with your friends and family so they too can learn from the life of Abraham Lincoln. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset English for more inspiring stories that help you grow not just in English, but in life. Together, let's learn, reflect, and become better every day. Thank you for walking with me through this unforgettable journey. And always remember Lincoln's words. The best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Let's make each day count.